All right, we're here with Matt Dengler from RXRD Nutrition. Matt, welcome.
Thank
to
you.
The facility.
Thanks
There's some training going on in the background. Really excited about today. We're talking a bunch of different topics on the nutrition side as it relates to a lot of our demographic, typically 40 to 65. But before I start there, man, give us the background a little bit on you so everyone knows kind of where they're coming from and where we're going here.
Yeah. Well, Billy, thanks so much for having me. My name is Matt Dengler. I'm a registered and licensed dietitian. I work specifically with the fitness community on creating 100% customized meal plans to help anyone trying to reach their goals. A lot of our clients are in weight loss or body recomposition. We do have a lot of clients who are trying to put on lean muscle mass. We have a lot of high school athletes that we work with as well who try to gain muscle mass as they're heading into the off season or trying to improve sport performance. And we really hone in on the nutrition side. We've got Billy here working on the weight side. He takes care of that. I work specifically on the nutrition side, and we really dive in and customize a plan that is going to be really designed for them. There are a lot of things out there that are just very general templates, apps. There's a lot of things that you can get into, but we try to make it a lot more customized to the person, so that way there's no guessing. There's no like, oh, well, someone generally this size should be eating this. We take a look at your day, we take a look at your timing, we take a look at when you train, and we take a look at what foods do you actually like. You know, the best meal plan is one somebody will actually follow.
Yeah.
So there's no sense of, if you don't, broccoli is really good for you. If you don't like it, I'm not going to put it on there. It doesn't make any sense. If you have any food allergies, intolerances, sensitivities, religious restrictions, we make sure that those are not on there. So again, we just kind of take the holistic, we take a look at the entire person, the entire athlete, and really figure out what are their goals, and let's come up with a plan for them so it's simple to follow and no more guessing of like how much is enough. Should I be eating this? What to eat before a workout? What to do after? So you come in here, you weight train, you work hard, and then once you leave here, the job is not done. It's time to hit up your nutrition, and we take care of all that.
Yeah, love that. I think it's similar philosophy of how we've approached the fitness side of assessment to customized approach so that everyone's getting this plan specific for them and their goals, which I think is huge. Well,
correct.
Let's start in what I think is kind of one of the hot topics right now. It's I'm sure it's the same thing nutrition-wise. I know on the fitness side, there's been so many ebbs and flows for as long as I've been in the industry of, 1 minute it was like cardio was the enemy, and now zone 2 is all the rage. It's just funny how things shift. Supplements are one of the biggest things that people are talking about right now, and I feel like creatine was kind of the bad guy for a while, then it was the good guy, and it's one of the most well-researched supplements out there. But what I'd love to just start with is, again, understanding everyone's different and it's specific. What are some of the foundational supplements, with the mindset of the 40 to 65-year-old age, both male and female? What are some of the common foundational supplements you think people should be starting with or should be consuming? Yeah,
really good question. We tend to get this question the most. It's a good place to start here, is supplements. I will say, though, before we dive into any supplements, what I try to do as a dietitian is let me see what you're actually eating first, right? So the best thing that you can do and anyone can do is start with real food.
Yeah,
that's where you need to begin. Your body is going to like real food better. It's going to satiate you for longer. You're actually going to get better outcomes with real food versus a supplement. And that's not my opinion. That's in the data. That's in the research. But when we take a look at supplements, again, first start with, what do you eat, right? And where is the hole in your diet? Then that's where we talk about supplementation.
So when should someone know that it's time to actually consider a supplementation? So if someone's looking at what they're eating, like you mentioned, at what point should they be saying, okay, it's time to supplement? Is that through blood work or some sort of testing along those lines?
Yeah, so, quick plug. Come see me. Yeah. I'll let you know.
Yeah.
But of course, blood work obviously will give us a good idea and recommendations on if you're low in any of those vitamins and mineral side of things. But when it comes to some of those bigger supplements that you're probably talking about and what we see most in the gym setting, is going to come down to some things you mentioned, the creatine, the protein powders, things like that. And that'll come down to performance and your goals. Like if you're trying to create and build more lean mass, right, and you're working hard in the gym and that's not the issue, then it comes down to your nutrition, right? There's our issue. That's when we are like, hey, this is what I'm eating. And that's, again, part of what we do is let's see what you're eating. And where's your hole? Is that look, this is what I'm eating. We either add more food, add more protein, or whatever you might be lacking. And then if we can't necessarily get it through food, or I'm also realistic, right?
Yeah.
If you are in the job setting, you're on a Zoom call, you're traveling for work, you won't necessarily get to just bust out a chicken breast and rice and broccoli every 5 minutes, right? Like you can't do that. That's where supplementation will help, where I can't necessarily eat now. Okay, so you can't get real food, time to get a supplement.
Yeah.
That's when we know it's time for that. So again, that's hearing about your schedule. What do you do for a living? Where do you typically eat? Where are the holes? And then that's where we can fill those things in. So back to your original question, as far as what supplements, protein is on top of that list for us.
Do you find, I don't mean to cut you off, but do you find most people in your experience are deficient in appropriate protein intake?
Yes.
And so the supplementation of protein powder is an easy way to get where they need to go?
By far.
Yeah.
It's easily the biggest deficiency when it comes to my male clients, but definitely my female clients for sure. My males tend to be somewhat in the ballpark. My female clients, not even close oftentimes, especially if you're in here weight training, lifting weights, weight resistance activity, which we ought to be doing, which we will talk about later, I'm sure. But we got to make sure that you're getting the correct amount of protein. And let's be honest, the RDA, the recommended dietary allowance, is about it's about a quarter of what you should be actually getting in if you are training in a gym setting, if you're weight resistant.
Why
activity.
is that? Is that just because, like the recommended daily allowance is just truly like, this is the minimum threshold you should be at, but we know based on goals, based on activity levels, that obviously is going to fluctuate and going to bump up?
Yeah, so that RDA is actually based off of what is the lowest amount that will not allow you to be deficient, overall body deficiency in the general population.
Gotcha.
Right? When you're talking about fitness enthusiasts, people who work out, you're talking about to a small population of overall Americans. I wish it was higher. We all wish it was a little bit higher, but it's not the case, right? You've got a small population who actually are weight training, 2, 3, even 1 day a week. So that number is, again, based off of the general population, so make sure you're not deficient overall in your overall health. So now you take a population who, as obviously, you might be hitting that number, but you need way more if your goals are to maintain muscle mass, build lean mass, or lose body fat mass. Your protein better be high. And so now you're talking anywhere from about 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of overall body weight. And of course, that can differ based off of goals, what you're training, how you're training, and then again, total body weight as well. And we have to start then looking at lean muscle mass to support that. So that is typically way more than what the average person is probably doing. So just to make it easy, if you're a 200-pound man and you're trying to work out and you're trying to build lean muscle mass or maintain the muscle mass you have during a cut, you're looking anywhere from 180 to 200 grams of protein per day.
Yeah, a lot more than most people are at.
That's a big number, and it doesn't happen on accident. And so that's where we come in and try to create a plan for you, so it's not like, oh man, I'm at dinner and I'm 70 grams behind. We're not expecting you to get that. We've got to collect it throughout the day.
So let's play the kind of scenario, typical scenario. We have a 50-year-old working mom coming in here training 2 to 3 times a week. And based on your experience with that age demographic, what are some of the typical supplements based on what you typically see deficiency-wise? What are some of the typical supplements that you may be recommending, encouraging? Again, with the caveat that this is all specific and is based off the assessment, but let's kind of play the catch-all game. What are the typical ones that you may encourage based on, that type of client?
Yeah, for sure. First off, again, protein. Yep. I mean, that's where we're going to say, unless, of course, you're getting it through your food for the day, which ideally I want you to do. Typically, it's not going to happen.
And this is an isolate as well that you're typically encouraging, not necessarily, because you can see the meal replacements. There's always the meal replacements versus the whey protein isolate, which, is a conversation we've had. But are you going with isolate most of the case?
Yes. Yeah, if you can. Whey protein isolate is where you want to start. They have the best amino acid profile, meaning it's there to support lean muscle mass gain. And there is a bunch of science that shows there is an index scores to kind of to rate different types of proteins. Whey protein isolate, whey protein concentrate are at the top of the list. Okay. And then you got to get into real food, the whole egg, your animal proteins, things like that. So that's where we want to start. I will say the caveat on whey protein, though, is that it is a dairy derivative.
Correct.
So if you can't do lactose, you have an issue breaking it down, lactose intolerant, if you have a religious restriction, if you're a vegan, you can't do that. So you can turn to a plant-based product. It's not as high on that amino acid profile scale, but it's still a protein source that you can consume, and and that's totally fine. Don't think that if you can't do a whey protein, you're totally out of the game. You can totally do it. But yeah, that's exactly where I would start. Start with the protein, and then again, we'll kind of look at what you're doing through your food. Oftentimes, we'll have to supplement that with a protein throughout the day. That can be a bar protein shake, like a ready-to-drink shake, or a powder. And there are different brands, of course, that. Some are really good and some are not so good. We can talk about that too. But I would definitely probably start there. The other big three that I tend to recommend is would be a multivitamin. It's really hard to get all the necessary vitamins and minerals throughout the day through food, and that's from somebody who knows what they're doing, right? So I take a multivitamin just to know that if I'm not necessarily going to get it through my food, I'm going to get some exposure to that vitamin and mineral through a supplement. Secondly would be a vitamin D. We are just not outside enough. And that's not necessarily, and we've got a pretty good climate to be outside more than others, but we are just not outside enough to convert enough vitamin D. So oftentimes we need a vitamin D supplement. A lot of times we can go get that checked through blood work. It's not necessarily always on the basic panel of blood work. It's something that you would have to ask for and probably oftentimes pay more for, but it's worth it to get that checked probably every once a year, every couple of years. But chances are it's going to be low. It just typically is. And then the other thing is an omega-3 supplement like a fish oil or something like that. That's kind of my big three. The omega-3s, we just don't get enough omega-3 fatty acids through our diet unless you eat salmon 3 or 4 days a week in the house, outside the house. Typically we don't. And so if you do, great, you probably don't need it. But if you don't, you're going to need a supplementation here. A fish oil is the best one that we can get, and omega-3s really benefiting many different facets in our body, but the big thing is going to be cardiovascular health, joint health. It does help with inflammation. It helps with eye health. It actually has been shown to help young kids. I started my kids really young on an omega-3, and that is help with eye. Helps with improving eye health and then literacy rates at young kids. So it does really benefit because again, we just don't eat enough omega-3s. The next big one that you can get it from is like walnuts, which again, you have to eat a lot of walnuts, which is a lot of calories to get the omega-3 benefits. You take a supplement here.
Let's quickly touch on, because there's 3 ones that come up, we get questions on all the time. Let's touch on creatine quick, because I think that's right now is a big thing, especially among our female population. Give me your quick take. We sent out a note recently to our clients through some feedback from you on this, and one of the big things is if you have a history of liver issues or anything like that, you want to make sure obviously this is all approved through your doctor. But I would love your quick take on the use of creatine and where that actually may serve a valuable purpose for someone.
Yeah, creatine, yes, definitely. It's been around a long time, like you mentioned before. For whatever reason, it was just kind of used by football players and bodybuilders for a long time. But heavily tested. It's the second highest tested and graded supplement out there, just behind whey protein. So it's safe for multiple age brackets. Of course, get approval by doctors or go see a dietitian with that. But generally speaking, it's really safe and effective for multiple age brackets. It's not only been showing benefits, physical benefits, which we've kind of known about for a long time, which of course is just going to allow more water into the muscle cell. Muscle 75% water, so we want encouraging more water into the muscle cell, creating more ATP energy for not only performance while you're in the gym, but also for recovery. But now we've kind of seen, and data suggests, the cognitive benefits of creatine, especially in our aging population, and maintaining strong bones and muscles, again, in our aging population. So if you were to fall down, you can get back up. And if you've got stronger bones and stronger muscles, you'll be able to survive that or not break anything on the fall and be able to get back up, no problem.
Love it. What about collagen? I know that's another one that gets brought up quite a bit.
Yeah, collagen is a source of protein. And oftentimes it can come from some sort of meat byproduct. But we see this, it's more really built for improving hair, skin, and nails. It's really not, the amino acid profile is not there to help build lean muscle mass. Mm-hmm. So there is a place for it. Mm-hmm. But if your goal is like, hey, I'm going to add this collagen post-workout shake or whatever to rebuild my muscles, I would not suggest that as being your only protein source that you use for that rebuilding process. Gotcha. Again, it helps with hair, skin, and nails. It can help with, some research has been shown to help improve when you have an injury or you've gone through a surgery, things like that, ligaments and tendons.
It shouldn't be your main driving supplement based on performance gains or something along.
No, it can be a part of the equation, but it can't be the only thing.
Last one is kind of a green supplement. AG1 has been the rage for a period of time now. So talk to us a little bit about where that can be a valuable supplement, where and who should be doing that regularly, or any feedback on that.
Yeah, don't waste your money. Okay. There you go. It is an overpriced. It's overpriced, first of all. Yeah. It is a very expensive. Of course, I'm going to say go eat fruits and veggies. Yeah. But ideally, if you can't or you don't get to it or you're just like, I don't like those things, it's marketed as a substitute or as good as a fruit and veggie, and of course it is not.
Yep.
If you look at the back of the panel, like an AG1 or any of the other ones out there, it's an incomplete multivitamin. So it's a poor multivitamin. It's not a great fiber supplement. Mm-hmm. It's they often have some caffeine in there. And it's and also not a great probiotic, right? Mm-hmm. So they've got all of these things packaged together, selling it as this wonderful thing. But I would argue, if you have any of those issues, let's get you those things individually, way cheaper and better, and more complete than that powder altogether, and save you a little bit of money and actually get better benefits.
Love it. Well, let's kind of close the loop on the supplement side. I think my last question to you is, what should people be looking for in a supplement brand? How do they know that, because again, the supplement industry is an unregulated industry, which is a scary thing to say, but is unregulated. But there are some things to look for. For instance, we are affiliated with Thorne and love Thorne products. NSF safe, and maybe that's the key thing to look for. But I'm curious on your end, when going with the supplement brand, what are some of the key things people should be looking for?
Yeah, for sure. You nailed it there. Things that you should be looking for on that label is NSF certified or Informed Choice certified. Okay. These brands spend a lot of money to get these people from NSF Informed Choice into their labs, into their product line, and to really vet out what's actually in the bottle is actually what's on the label, and what's on the label is actually what's in the bottle. Yeah. And that it costs that company a lot of money to get them in there. So if they spent the money to do it, trust me, it'll be on their label. They're going to tout that as that they've got that certification. You can go on their websites, NSF and Informed Choice, and literally type in creatine. Yeah. And it'll come out. Here are all the brands that are NSF certified, and that's a great place to start. Now, there are other brands that don't necessarily have that, but have been vetted out as to be a good choice. But definitely do your homework, do your research, because there have been countless studies that are done that they actually literally took supplements off of the store shelves of Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, any grocery store, and they tested them, and they had either trace amounts, 10%, 20% of what they actually said was on the label was actually what's in the bottle. Yeah. And so you get what you pay for in the supplement world. Yeah. So again, do your research.
Yeah. I love it. Well, let's shift gears a little bit, because I think another thing that we talk all the time about is this concept and idea of how much should I eat, right? So obviously it's no secret in the health and fitness industry, losing weight is one of the main reasons people approach us, right? Or body recomposition, or people use a variety of terms to describe that, but ultimately changing the way their body is. So I think let's start with just a foundational understanding around, how does someone even begin to understand how much they should be consuming on a daily basis?
Yeah, really tough question. And it really comes down to, it all starts with height, weight, age, gender, right? that's where we begin when it comes to coming up with how much do you expend per day. Now, there's some great calculators that you can go Google them, right? You don't need me for that. I mean, you can just go in and just type in like a TDE calculator, which is your total daily energy expenditure.
And how accurate are those, though, based on your experience? I know there's probably a plethora of them, but I mean, can those give you a true rough amount?
Yeah, like in the nutrition space, we use kind of the gold standard is the Mifflin-St. Jeor equation. Again, that's just basically plugging those things in. Back in the day, I had to memorize that. I don't remember anymore, but because we have the calculators now. But yeah, so you can just plug those things in. You have a pretty good idea of what that comes out to. Now, there are other factors that can make it more specific to you if you know your body fat percentage. Like in our practice, we have a machine called an InBody. InBody is a fancy scale that's going to give us a full printout, tell us height, weight, age, gender, but also going to tell us lean muscle mass, skeletal muscle mass, body fat percentage, all of that good stuff. It also computes your BMR, your basal metabolic rate. That's the rate at which you burn calories at rest. So that kind of gives us kind of a baseline because that does take in your muscle mass. Muscle mass will adjust your BMR, how many calories you burn at rest based on how much muscle mass that you have. That tells us the more muscle mass you have, the faster your metabolism is going to be. So that's why like The Rock needs to eat like 8,000 calories a day, something crazy, because his BMR is so high because he's got so much muscle mass, right? So that machine can help us do that, and then we can use those numbers and kind of start plugging away and kind of put that into a calculator, and it can punch out something. Now, it's not perfect. It's never perfect, right? And that's where, again, in our practice, that's the quantitative side, but we know that people are more than just numbers, right? There is the person side of this, like, give me the qualitative data, right? And there are a lot of times where we hit this number and this is their goal based off what they're trying to accomplish. We come up with calories and macros for them and they go and like, great, it's perfect. And then there's a bunch of times that it's not great and we got to go back to kind of, okay, I need a little bit more, I need a little bit less based off of your assessment of how am I feeling, how am I performing, and what are the numbers saying, right?
So there's the initial, hey, here's what the data tells us that you should be, or the algorithms or whatever says you should be roughly about this amount. But there also is the subjective component of, okay, how are you actually responding to those amounts, and how are you doing based on what we give you in those particular moments?
Yeah, and that's the kind of the calorie in, calorie out. Right. It's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense on paper, but people aren't paper, right? Like there's a whole other side to the emotional side, the person side, the real life side to calorie in versus calorie out. Yes, that makes a lot of sense and that is accurate, but it doesn't tell us the whole story.
So, yeah, like you said, I mean, there's so many variables at play in this whole process. So I think going in depth here might be beyond this conversation, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about, because you mentioned macros, right? And macros and counting macros and all that comes up all the time. And so we got to talk about macronutrients, which is macros for short, or macro is the short version of that. We're talking carbohydrates, talking fats, we're talking protein. Give us the quick snapshot of kind of those three things and then how those play a role in ultimately total calorie intake. Because I think a lot of people hear that, but probably actually don't even know exactly what that means, or don't understand how those actually play a role in total calories consumed across the board.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so macros, macronutrients, these are the only things that provide you actual energy, right? Calorie is our energy source, and these are the only things that are going to provide you actual energy. Micronutrients are a thing, and that's a whole other topic, and that's great, but they don't actually provide you real energy. They can help support and create energy, but they are not real energy, which is in our case calories for our body, right? So when we talk about protein and carbs, there's 4 calories for every gram. Fat, there's 9 calories for every gram, right? And that's that 9 calorie for every gram of fat kind of led to that, remember, mid-90s fat-free craze of like, the Snackwell cookies and all, like, let's take all the fat out, right? And then what happened is that no one actually lost any weight from reducing fat because they just had to fill the cookie in with sugar and carbs, and then we had a whole box, not just 2 at a time, right? Because like, oh, it's fat-free, it must be good for me, right? It's not. So good thing, and those things aren't around anymore. And because we just thought it was a fat thing. Fat doesn't just make you fat; it's the abundance of calories that make you overweight. It's not just a one thing, right? And so the ketos of the world and the low carb and the Atkins stuff. It's not the amount of carbs that are holding you back from reaching your goal of losing weight, right? It's not like I'm eating too many carbs. You're eating too many calories. Now, if your calories are coming from carbohydrates, well, then there's your problem, right? We reduce calories from carbs. It's not a carb issue, it's a calorie issue.
And I think that is a critical thing, because I think in today's day and age where you have what seems like the dogmatic, you got to either be keto or paleo or whatever else you want to throw out there, I think what gets lost is what you just said right there. Mm-hmm. Choose whichever route you want to go.
Correct.
Vegetarian, vegan, pure
intermittent fast, whatever.
Choose whichever route you want today. At the end of the day, though, when it comes down to body weight, calorie intake is a critical piece.
That's it.
Whether it's from carbs, whether it's from fat, whether it's from protein, that's the critical piece of this whole process.
There's nothing magical. Yeah, there's nothing magical about these specific diets per se, right? Yeah. It's, are you in a caloric deficit at the end of the day? If the answer is yes, and you do that for multiple days, you will lose weight. Now, like you said, if it's the structure that helps you get there, keto, intermittent fasting, whatever, if that process helps you stay in a deficit, great, then that's working for you, right? It's not that diet's any better than anyone else. It's just it allowed you to stay in a deficit for longer or more consistently than another one. And that's what makes it good for you.
So there's a lot of places we can go from here. But I think let's talk about, because you've mentioned the calorie deficit side. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this piece, we get a lot of people that come to us with the goal of losing weight. The only way to do that, we just mentioned, is calorie deficit. How should and do then, and I think the answer is no based on what you said, do macros need to change at all to be able to get there, or is it truly just managing overall intake of calories?
Yeah, no, there is a way to manipulate the macros to make sure that they are set up to optimize your sport specific, whatever that might be, weight training, marathon running, whatever it might be, right? Think about it, if you do more running, more cardio, more aerobic, or just more time working out, you're going to need more calories, but more should be coming from carbohydrates, versus somebody who's maybe just getting started on their fitness journey, and maybe all you do is take a 15-minute walk per day, right? And you do that 3 days a week, right? Obviously, that doesn't expenditure is not as much as somebody who's running a marathon, right? So your macros those macros are very different. Their caloric loads are going to be different too, but their macro percentages would be different. So
is there an ideal for your general population? Again, let's play the game of 50-year-old male coming to us looking to lose 10 to 15 pounds. That's the standard answer we get. Is there an overall macro count, meaning or percentage, hey, this much from protein, carb, is there an ideal they should be at? Or is it totally variable based on the person?
Yeah, so anytime we try to figure out somebody's caloric and macro goal, we first look at their body weight and then their protein number, right? So what we have to first figure out, anchoring protein is the number one thing that we have to look at, because remember, it was based off of your body weight. We fill in the gaps with everything else. So we figure out what that is, right? So say, this person is 200 pounds, right? And they're looking to lose 10 to 15 pounds, right? We would manipulate whatever the caloric goal is, right? Generally speaking, on a workout day, we'll get them having around 35% of their calories coming from carbs, 35% from protein, 30% from fat. But that only works if that 35% from protein is at or just under their body weight for protein.
Gotcha.
If it's more, well, that's not going to work. We're going to have to change that, right?
Tweak that.
Or if it's way under, right, or way under their lean muscle mass, we typically will bump up the protein, cut the carbs a little bit, because that person is maybe a little bit more heavier and they got a little bit more to go. We will bump the protein up and then cut a little bit from the carbohydrates. But generally speaking, we typically do 35 carb, 35 protein, 30 fat on a workout day. Now, we do change it on a rest day. We do bring carbohydrates down on a rest day because you're not active enough, your heart rate's not getting high enough to result more carbohydrates. So we just take a little bit of that and we then flip it and bring it in more protein. So that typically is a 30% carbs, 40% protein, 30% fat.
All right, so Matt, we got two completely different types of people, right? We have the type A driver that's willing to say, Billy, tell me what I need to do. I will log my food in MyFitnessPal, write it all down, and do everything there. And then we have the other person on the other side who says, man, I got 3 kids, I got all this going on, life is gonna happen, I can't log anything. How do we work with those two people to understand how much they should actually be consuming, specifically for the other person that's not maybe willing to log? Because if you're logging, you get a better understanding because the apps will tell you of where your macronutrients and all that is. What about the person that isn't going that route? Can they understand that?
Yeah, we have both types of those clients in our practice. We've got the people who go the hardcore and all that, and we do have the people who are like, hey, I'm just kind of getting started. I don't have the time, energy, bandwidth to kind of do all of that extras, but I still have goals, right? Yep. And so what we first start with is, and that's okay. We can definitely work it out, and we've got clients who are very successful doing it that way. But the first thing we start with is kind of that low-hanging fruit. What got you into this position? What's your biggest pitfall? What's your biggest obstacle that got us to where we are? And typically that's a person where it's like, hey, I put on an unwanted 10, 15, 20 pounds over the last year or whatever, or shorter, and so I start, how did we get here, right? And oftentimes it's something along the lines of like, it's a alcohol thing, like too much consumption, too much volume, too many days. It's a travel thing. It's a work thing where it's like we're hosting clients and we've got take clients out for lunch and travel and all of that stuff. It could be sweets, sugar, sweetened beverages. That's sodas to coffee drinks to whatever, and that stuff adds up over time. You didn't gain the 15, 20, from last month, hopefully, right? Like, there's something that's putting you up and over and being in a surplus over the last year. And it doesn't have to be a lot. And that's what the research shows, is that just 200, 300 calories of surplus per day over time will get you into this, and that's not a lot. I mean, that's a protein bar.
Man, it's funny you say that. When we did a kind of a nutrition challenge piece here in February of this year, and that was one of our big conversations. We were talking around the protein powder side, because a lot of people were using a meal replacement without understanding what they were doing versus a whey protein isolate. And if you look at the total calories of those, a lot of times the whey protein per scoop was like 100, let's call it.
Right.
Well, the meal replacement might be 200 or 210. And we were saying, well, just imagine that every single day for 7 days. Now you're looking at 700 calories over a month. Let's call it 4 weeks. You're looking at potentially 2,800 to 3,000 calories per month over a year.
Yeah.
There's your pounds there, right?
And you're that's something you're trying to do right.
Yes.
Right. That's not the drink. That's not the candy. That's not the no you're doing all the right things, and oftentimes that's probably coming after a workout or in the morning, because I want to avoid all these higher calorie things. I'm doing that. But it just adds up.
So what I'm hearing from you is that, okay, so if you don't want to go the logging route and tracking everything, you can find results and you can see results that way. Oftentimes, it's a matter of trying to come down to the fundamental understanding of what potentially is getting you in the specific surplus, and then making the right decisions around those specific things.
Yeah, and I would say, be really transparent, be honest with yourself, and then it comes down to the volume of the thing, right? Yeah. There's no such thing as bad foods, right? The only foods that you cannot have are the ones that are expired or poisonous. That's it. Yeah. Everything else is on the table, right? Yeah. It just becomes a volume issue now. It's dose makes the poison. Yeah. There's no issues with, pizza and beer and wings and wine, but we can't have it every day. We can't have, if we're going to order wings, get 6, don't get 12, right? Yeah. Like, that's the win there, right? If you're drinking Coca-Cola and it's 7 days a week, right? Maybe it's 5. That's better than 7, right? If I'm having the medium fountain drink, let's get the small. Like, all of those little things add up over time. And then once that starts to get reduced, right, you're saving calories there. All those little things get bumped down. Now we're getting those calories back. That's where weight loss can happen without really measuring anything. Watch your volume and know what you were doing before. Be honest and transparent with yourself, because a lot of times research shows that we lie to ourselves about what we're having, right? And that's why, food journaling is not necessarily a 24-hour recall, is not a great way to tell me what you've had, right? If I ask you what you had for breakfast on Monday, it's going to be tough for you to recall all of the things that you might have had or what you had for the entire day on Monday, right? That was only a couple days ago.
And I think, and you said it, and I think research will show, especially for even recording food, that people can be up to 1,000 calories off of where they. And I can tell you from personal experience going through this, and as I was going through this with nutrition pieces, I was like, man, and the things people probably aren't recording is the olive oil they're using to cook the chicken on the skillet, and all these little things those are all calories in it as well. Let's talk, because I want to shift here in a second, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about one piece, which is a lot of people come to us saying, I want to lose 10 to 50 pounds. they think it's weight loss that they want, but then they use the language around, I want to get more toned, more defined, and then we know what they really mean is they want to improve lean muscle mass and lose body fat, right? Mm-hmm. They want to recomp or body recomposition. Do my nutrition goals, calorie intake goals have to change? Meaning, like if I want to lose weight, but I want a body recomp, can those two things actually happen at the same time, right? Because I got to be in kind of a calorie deficit to lose the weight, but if I'm strength training, can I also build lean muscle mass simultaneously? Or is it kind of a one versus the other type deal in there?
Yeah, good question. The first thing you would start with is, where is this person on their training journey, right? If you're a newbie, you're just kind of getting started out, this is fairly new for you, or restarted. Maybe you did it years ago and now you're kind of coming back. We can see that. And we will see it because your protein's up, you're training again, you can build lean muscle as you lose body fat mass. But someone like you or somebody who's a well-trained individual, it's a pretty tough go. Only because creating lean muscle mass requires an environment of calories. Surplus, you need calories, right. Yeah. And ideally a surplus, right? And that's where you can really put on some muscle mass. Now, some body fat mass will come with it. It's collateral damage. It comes with the territory. And that's when I've got clients who are trying to put on lean muscle mass or be in a surplus, their body fat percentage has to be in that lower 8 to 13%. Only because if you don't, you're going to recruit a lot of body fat mass as you're in a surplus, which folks don't necessarily love, right? So to answer your question, yes, you can, based off of your fitness, where you are in your fitness training. But a lot of the times, people are seeing me who are already training or, like have already kind of been in it a little bit. We have seen it. And particularly we see it more with our female clients only because their protein numbers were always so bad.
Interesting.
They were so low.
You've changed the protein intake, and by doing that, you've seen, hey, potentially body fat drops, lean muscle mass improves, but there may not necessarily be a weight gain or anything else. You're just seeing a true recomp of numbers.
Well, they're actually finally putting the right ingredients in while the training stays the same, but now they're putting the right things. It's like, it's like you being a baker and I'm like, hey, make me a cake, but I'm not going to give you eggs, sugar, or flour. You're like, okay, well, I can't really do much, do that? Right? You can try, but it's not going to really get to the end ingredient that you want. Muscle mass building or body recomp is the same thing. If you're not putting the right ingredients in, you're not going to get the product at the end.
Well, so I think that's a great segue because you mentioned on the female side, we get a ton of women that are in different stages, but are kind of in menopause. And I think a lot of the questions we get of, obviously we know the symptoms are different. We know how people experience that are drastically different. We know there's a hormonal component to that. But let's talk specifically on the nutrition side for someone in menopause. Is there anything specific they should be aware of, they should be focused of in helping manage some of the symptoms or some of the experience? I mean, what's the research say? What's your anecdotal experience tell you on that end?
Yeah, well, first off, go get your hormones checked, right? Yeah. That would be the number one thing, and that's beyond my scope of practice. Now, we can order labs tested for you, but you would still want to go see your doctor, make sure that you are your hormones are at normal levels, because a lot of times, obviously, if you're in menopause, they're not, right? Yep. And so that's where HRT, hormone replacement therapy, is really kind of the only and best thing that you can do to get that. I mean, if you're not making them, you need to then synthetically get them, right? Yep. And that's really the best way to kind of reduce any of those effects, the hot flashes and things like that. Yeah. Nutritionally, though, things that we really want to focus on, of course, is weight training, because we're talking about bone health, right? Because as you get older, especially our female population, bones start to get a little bit softer. We start reducing bone health, and that would be, the only way to support that is going to make sure that you are weight training. Is weight resistant activity. So we want to make sure your muscle mass is high. And then, of course, that then trickles down to me is, what's your protein look like? So that's, of course, going to be our number one thing. Not that that's a big shock, but that is going to be our number one thing, making sure that we're checking your protein number. The other big thing is, I'll have some of my clients who are in the menopause range is that they oftentimes don't necessarily have a consistent appetite. And so they're skipping meals a lot. And so we're not necessarily getting enough calories in that they ought to be getting consistently throughout the day. So now they're on this little bit of this roller coaster of like really low calorie. Well, then now they're starving. And so now they're eating this really high amount of calories just to come back down again. And anytime we've got anyone who is really, really hungry and they're looking for a bunch of calories, well, what do we turn to? We turn to the pantry.
Yeah,
and that pantry is going to be something that's made already, it's boxed, it's packaged, and it's going to taste really good, and it's at our fingertips. That's what we turn to. So now you've increased this huge caloric load, and now you probably can't stop because you're really hungry, and you're not necessarily getting that messaging, which takes around 20 to 30 minutes from our gut to our brain to say, we're good, we're full.
Yeah.
And so now you're ravenous, and again, probably higher in sugar, lower nutrition value. And so now you're kind of on this roller coaster ride, which we want you off of that. We see that a lot. Other supplements to think about too, vitamin D, calcium, right? And that is, of course, in support of bone health and making sure they're strong. We stop growing our bone strength at 30 years old. 30 and beyond, whatever you've built, that's what we've got for the rest of our life.
Cooked, man.
We're done.
I hit it.
Yeah. So we can help support and maintain what we have in bone density, but we can't grow any more. So it's really important that we are supporting that weight resistance activity, and then support that with protein intake, calcium, vitamin D, not skipping meals, making sure we're having calories regularly throughout the day. And then, higher amounts of sugar intake can cause some inflammation, and greasy foods can also lead to some more hot flashes and things like that. Inconsistent sleep patterns, which then can turn into irritability, mood swings, things like that, which can be indirectly controlled through nutrition.
Yeah. Got it. Well, let's kind of start to wrap this up a little bit, and I put down a couple of rapid fire questions that I think 60 seconds or less. Give us your quick take on, and I'm curious what you say on here. Based on your experience, what is the biggest mistake most people make as it relates to nutrition side?
Biggest mistake is that people think they've got to be all or nothing. They think that, oh man, I did so great during the week, and then I went out for a birthday and I had a piece of cake for a birthday cake and on Saturday, and then, diet's over or wherever, I can't do this is not for me, I'm never going to make it. And then, now you're in this shame spiral, which does not have to exist. You don't have to be all or nothing. 80-20 rule is a good way to kind of live. 80% of the time, eat well, eat healthy, 20% enjoy. Because unless you're training for some sort of bodybuilding show, some sort of, contest or whatever, you can. I want you to have some of those fun and joyful foods in your diet.
This might be a similar question, and maybe it's the answer you just gave. But what's one of the most common things you see holding people back from making progress? So maybe different than mistake, maybe the same what you just described. But is there a common thing that you think is actually holding people back from making progress?
Yeah, and this kind of piggybacks off that is the planning. Like you've got to stay planned on what you're going to be eating and what your day looks like. If your day looks different every single day, you got to know where your meetings are. Are you going out to lunch? Are you going out to dinner? Are the kids have after school activities? You have to sit at a sports game. All of that matters on what you should be bringing with you and you're leaving the house. You should never leave the house empty-handed.
Yeah.
You should have some sort of snack with you. Again, that's where protein supplements can live, a bar, a shake, something like that. We want to always be in control of our nutrition and not be like, oh, I'll just get something out. Or I'll get it at the ball game. Or I'll get it at the concession stand. They're not going to have healthy foods at those things. So you got to be in control and map out and plan your day specifically on what I'm going to eat and when based off of what we need. Ourselves are here, our calendar, our life is here. Our food nutrition should live around it. It shouldn't be the other way around, right? We don't, it's not the other way. So we got to plan for those things.
I just to piggyback on that for a second. I mean, that is 100% what we've seen in our experiences. I mean, it's even the fitness side. We say the same thing. This has to be a meeting like you'd schedule a work meeting and commit to it. And I think to your point of it doesn't take, I think people think it takes more brain power than it does. It's just thinking ahead, long term, just like you might with your finances, just like you might with anything else.
Be mindful.
Be mindful of what you're getting in. All right, protein bars. What's one of your one or two favorites that you like and that you encourage people to roll with?
Yeah, so whey protein varieties, I really like Barbell bars. The One Bar is good. And then, there are some plant-based varieties ones as well. Aloha Bar, RX Bar, really good. Nugo, Misfits are some of my favorites. But yeah, you can find a bunch, but just things to look at on a label if you're not sure, right? Your sugar should be anywhere probably from 8 grams or below. If it's a whey protein bar, it should be around 20 grams or above. If it's,
meaning from the protein in that?
From the protein, yep. And, calorically, anywhere from 200 calories or so, that's kind of what to look for.
Gotcha. Love it. All right, last one is, what might be your one piece of advice you'd give to the person that's like, hey, I'm stuck, but I'm also like, I'm kind of trying, I'm kind of not trying, but I can't see the results? Because we see this all the time. The person that's like, man, I really want this, but they're kind of like, they're doing maybe a little bit, but they're not fully committed to making a full change. Is there any piece of advice you give?
Yeah, I would start there. What's stopping you from being a little bit more committed? I don't need 100%, but if you're 50, how do I get you to 60? How do I get you to 70? What's that 20%, 10% that's going to alter that, right? And so figuring out what those pitfalls are, obstacles, and getting those removed, or sidestepping them, or in building it a part of our day, right? If they're just like, hey, I would do better, but like, I can't stop. Like, I always have a bowl of ice cream every night, and I'm like, I can't just I'm not going to give that up.
Yeah.
Okay. Instead of saying, well, sorry, I can't help you. Ice cream is not good for you, right? Like, it's high sugar. Sorry, I can't. No, we build it into the day. Okay. If that is your thing, all right, the first thing that we do is establish in your meal plan is put that bowl of ice cream in. Right? If your goal is 2,000 calories, I'm just making this up, right? And that bowl of ice cream is 300 calories. Your goal for the day is now 1,700 calories, because we're going to build that in. Now, you've got lower carbs, lower fats, and all that stuff. The rest you're not going to be able to eat throughout the day.
Yeah, it's going to affect everything else.
It'll trickle down. But that doesn't mean you can't not do it because of that one thing, right? So we build that in, we establish it, and then when it gets to that time when it's time to eat that ice cream, you are mentally feeling better because you're like, I've already programmed this, I'm good. Like, I'm not feeling guilty or like, oh my gosh, like this is what's holding me back. No, this is just part of your day, right? So that's where I begin. Is like, what do you think what is the biggest obstacle for you? What's the hardest thing for you? And we will either try to make it work, or if it's something you were trying to get rid of, right? An alcohol thing is always a big one. Like, let's reduce the volume of that. I'm not saying it's zero, right? I'm realistic, right? But if it's 10 drinks a week, let's make it 8. Let's make it 6, right? It's better than 10, right? That's when we can start seeing changes.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Well, you got to check out Matt at RXRD. He's clearly knowledgeable, knows what he's doing, and doing some great work. Matt, we appreciate you coming out.
Thanks so much for having me.
Great, man. Obviously, a lot of good stuff here. So appreciate you all. Check us out. Hope to see you in here soon.
Thank you.